PC Casual Gamer Dad here, and I saw that Asmongold on his other channel, which is called Zach Rar. So if you like to see some of his other content outside of his streams where he just talks and whatnot, make sure you take a look at this channel and subscribe. I'm a subscriber myself, and just recently he reviewed his thoughts on Realm Reborn, which is the base game for Final Fantasy XIV since the reboot, right, since the Calamity sorts. So I'm very curious to see what his thoughts on the game are so far. So let's watch.
What's up, boys? About a month ago, I started playing Final Fantasy XIV, and a few days ago, I finished A Realm Reborn. Today, I want to give you a review of that experience. I went through the whole story. I went through all of the post-A Realm Reborn content. I did all of the raids, including all of the ones on Extreme with minimum item level and no echo in order to have as much of an authentic experience as possible. Did not do Savage Coils yet, however. And I have had a very good time. I think that I've actually really enjoyed myself. And before I get into just in general why I feel that way, I want to explain kind of what I went into it with the perspective of. Because going into Final Fantasy XIV, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, I had a million people telling me, oh, you should play this class, you should play on this server, you should play this way, you should keybind this way, you should play in this with this action bar, you should play with this add-on, you should play with a boost, you should not boost, etc. Right? I had a million voices in my head, and well, a million more voices in my head, and I just was going insane having these people try to tell me exactly how to play a video game. And at a certain point, I just told myself, well, listen, I'm going to play it the way I want to play it. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And I heard a lot about the story of Final Fantasy XIV, and I felt to myself that this is a game that is primarily driven by that story, by that narrative process, and that's really what I want to focus on. So I played a lot of the game primarily as a single-player game. I went through the quests, I read everything involved, and the ironic thing is that if I wasn't streaming it, I wouldn't have done that. And I feel like I've had a better experience because I did stream it, which is usually not the case with streaming video games. Because
That's really interesting because that's exactly how I'm playing the game, and I think regardless of whether I was streaming or not, I would, and that's just how I played Final Fantasy type games, and that's what people. I heard a lot of people say the story's really good. This is the first MMO where I'm actually sitting through and reading. I'm reading it quickly, right? I'm skimming through things. I'm trying to just catch the important points. But the fact is, I'm actually reading. I'm reading the quest, and I've never done that for this 31 levels into the game. I've never done that before.
whenever you're playing it off stream, you'll have more time to take everything in. But the reality is, I know myself, and I wouldn't have read the stuff in the same way that I did whenever I saw it and I did it on my stream and experiencing it with you guys. So I want to talk to you guys all about where those high points were, where the low points were, and just in general kind of how I felt about the whole story. Now, if you want to take a broad approach to the Final Fantasy story, I find that one thing that's very interesting about it is that there are very few characters and very few forces in Final Fantasy that are purely chaotic evil. If you want to look at the Dungeons and Dragons alignment chart, there are very few pure evils in Dungeons and Dragons. There's a lot of them, but in Final Fantasy, there are actually very few of those. And oftentimes, as you learn more about the story, you'll learn that many times the evil is misunderstanding, or the chaotic nature of something is misunderstood. And I find that to be very interesting, and I think also it lends itself to telling much better stories in terms of redemption and also in terms of retribution, because I find that to be much less common in Final Fantasy than it is in, let's say, World of Warcraft. And I've noticed that in many cases with the game that, this character that does this terrible thing is granted, they atone for their sins and they're sorry and they willingly turn themselves in. And I think that degree of redemption and that degree of kind of, I think, true moral grayness is, it lends itself to creating a more compassionate player base in a way, because I think that gives people the narrative idea inside of the story that sometimes whenever people do things that are bad, you might not necessarily understand exactly why these things are happening. And so it's kind of interesting to see how the player base is different from other MMOs and see how some of that could be reflected from the narrative storytelling inside of the game and how that imprints onto the player base. And I think for me personally, the high points in a story, I had a few high points in a story, definitely. I thought the one thing that was so fucking cool was Garuda, right, with the song and the music and everything like that. The fight itself was okay, it was fine, but I really liked the song for it and the music. And then later on, doing Ultimate Weapon on Extreme, I thought that was really, really cool, just because of how flashy and just absolutely dazzling it was. And in the story itself, the narrative itself, when did I really find myself attached to it, and when did I really care? I think the first time that I found it to be very interesting, and I really thought it was cool, was in the Coils of Baphomet, or whatever you call them. Whenever Alphanod the Redditor and his sister Alice, they meet their grandfather Louisoix, and they're like, "Well, what the fuck happened? Like, how is Baphomet still alive? I thought you killed him, and what happened all those years ago in the Calamity?" And then it just fucking he just looks to the side, and then it fades out, and it plays a full fucking CGI cinematic of this guy literally turning into a phoenix, a primal. The guy himself turns into a fucking primal and turns into a fucking Kamehameha bolt, pierces Baphomet's heart, fucking basically almost kills him, and then rebirths the entire world. And to see that in an actual cinematic, whenever you don't really know what happened, it's very gray, and to then just find the story and realize that something that you thought was evil or whatever was actually just the most pure action that you could possibly take. Yeah, I think that was just so incredible and so cool. And that was, in terms of like a, what's the word for this? In terms of a, like theatrical perspective, I think that was definitely a high point. But if you want to talk about like what really got me and what really made me feel like this story is fucking cool and this is like really special, is actually whenever you were going to the top of the fallen airship. Apparently there was like some big war, and the dragons interceded in the war, and it's this like giant dragon, like Midgard Sommer, like wrapped himself around like the main like flagship, and the flagship went down, and it killed everybody in the ship, obviously, and also killed the dragon. And but the dragon wasn't necessarily dead. Nobody really knew what was wrong with the dragon. Nobody knew what was going on. But there was an idea that the dragon was calling to the other dragons to attack this other place. So you go up, you ascend the top of the ship, and you finally get to the top of it, and you see the dragon, and the dragon's eyes turn red, and it starts talking to you. And the dragon, it was supposed to be fucking dead. And now you're just having this conversation with this dragon. And what I thought was so fucking cool about that is that, especially even in a game like Final Fantasy, it becomes even harder to do this, is that you have these moments in certain stories where the storytelling takes a story that has a scope of this and it turns it into this. And it's so hard to have a moment like that and have it be as pure and as sublime as it has to be in order for it to really have that real pure impact and that real emotional response. And I actually think that they did an incredibly great job with that. And that's where I really kind of got hooked, because I think to myself, like, where is the moment that takes the scope of what you experience, and it takes the mysticism and the mystery and the fantasy of the universe that you're part of, and it just multiplies it. And I thought of a few examples, right? I think that in terms of like a personal example for me, it was whenever I was off the coast of Westfall in World of Warcraft, and I just started swimming in a direction, and I found the Gurbashi Isle, and I thought I ran the game at level 11 or level 15 or something, and then I see these guys that are level 63 elites, and I'm like, oh my god, I had no idea what I was talking about. This game is way bigger than I could ever imagined. And if you want to talk about like narratives, like where's another narrative that kind of had this same idea? I can come up with like two examples that are very good, I think, to prove my point. I think that the first example is in Lord of the Rings, whenever Gandalf comes back in the Twin Towers, excuse me, the Two Towers, and he comes back, and they thought he had died, and he just, shows himself, fucking disarms everybody else, Gandalf, or, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas in just a split second, and he's like, I'm back, I beat the fucking Balrog. And this was just like, oh my god, right? Because you would have never expected this to happen. And it's like, it takes the scope of what Gandalf is, what he represents, and everything, and it just makes the world so much bigger. And you have it that occurs in, again, like this very pure and this very, in a way, straightforward and sublime way. And I think that's just what's so special about stories like this. And another example of this that I can use is the clips in Berserk. Whenever, obviously, like Griffith, this is I think that it might be obvious here, but there are going to be a lot of spoilers in this. So if you don't want any spoilers, you're probably already mad. But step away now. And anyway, Griffith ascends to becoming.
Do I care about spoilers? I haven't gotten to these parts.
A member of.
Okay, I'm gonna skip towards the end then. Maybe I don't want to hear some of these things. He doesn't have any. Let's see.
Heavensward, and getting, apparently, if you get all the birds in Heavensward, you get like this massive like golden like mass, I don't know, like a golden Lugia, pretty much, with the Final Fantasy content, but with the stuff that I did with WoW, and also the stuff that I did with New World 2. And I look forward to doing more things like that that are different and more variety focused in the future. And I really appreciate you guys giving me the confidence to be able to do that. So thank you. And I also look forward to doing Heavensward, and getting, apparently, if you get all the birds in Heavensward, you get like this massive like golden like mass, I don't know, like a golden Lugia, pretty much. Like we're doing that one. That's gonna happen 100%. And I'm
I'm
having
not
fun,
happy
man.
it's going.
It's really
Having fun,
enjoyable
yeah.
for
I
me
can
to
really.
just go through the game in the very very measured way that I have, and just take every experience one at a time and try to do everything in the most authentic way as I can. So either way, I want to say thank you guys all so much for watching. I've really enjoyed the game, and I look forward to apparently doing the fun part of the game, because I enjoyed the post Realm Reborn content. I thought it was completely fine. So if that was fun and that was enjoyable for me, I fully expect that Heavensward will be 1,000 times better, and I look very much forward to doing it myself. So that's about all I've got. I've enjoyed myself a lot, and I look forward to doing a lot more. So until next time, boys, peace.
Nice. All right. Well, I appreciate his thoughts on that, and I did skip a good chunk there. I didn't want to hear any like really big spoilers. Just because I haven't gone through all that yet, and I am following the story, and I want to just enjoy that genuinely. But I think it's great. I'm having a lot of fun with the game. That's kind of the reason why I've. That's really all I've been streaming lately. I still have to stream. I still have to watch the most recent update for Ashes of Creation. I haven't gotten around to that yet. I've been really busy with other things, and my only free time, I keep just wanting to play Final Fantasy, wanting to play Final Fantasy, keep wanting to play it in my spare time, and so that's what I've been doing. But I'll get around to those other things. But yeah, I totally get it. I can relate. I'm only level 31, and I'm not even close to the end, and I'm just having a lot of fun. So it's really great to see. I think there was a comment here that put it. Oh, here it is. One of the most fair and honest reviews, right? I think it actually really is, and you know, um, I mean, look at this comment too. People watch his streams because of you. I didn't used to watch his streams. Well, I don't watch his stream. I watch his videos typically after, but you know, I can see why people like watching him. I do. I can see why. He's very charismatic, and he's honest, and he's real and raw, and he's been doing it a long time. People can relate to him, so that's great. I'll just reiterate: take a look at his channel here, Zach Rauer. Just look it up on YouTube if you're interested in seeing this kind of content from him. And otherwise, have a great day. I'll be back maybe later. I'm gonna get to that Ashes of Creation. I'm gonna get to it. I'm going to. Hopefully in the next few days or so. So we'll check that out. But otherwise, have a good one, and I'll see you next time.